There we are. The stream is live.
Hey, folks. Welcome to Park Right Here, the ever-continuing saga of Tom Cosentino and Katrina Rochade on helping people live a better life with Parkinson's. Katrina is having a little bit of difficulty on the technical end, but I am so happy to say we've got an actual author of a book about Parkinson's. And look at this book. Look at the pretty colors. How to Reduce Symptoms Through Exercise by Kristine Meldrum, BA and ACE. I know she's an ACE, but you're gonna have to tell me what the BA and ACE stands for.
Oh, ACE. So ACE is an NCCA, which is for. I go in if you read chapter 11 of the book, I go into great detail about qualified professionals to help that you work with. So ACE is one of the professional NCCA certifications that you get as an exercise professional.
Okay. I thought you shot down like 5 different enemy planes during the war.
It sounds good, doesn't it?
I'm just saying a quick message to our counterpart. Okay. So one of the greatest things, and this is what we preach about with Parkinson's, I like to say I have the 4 pillars of Parkinson's. One is have a great doctor. Oops, hold on. There's our person. Let me call it. Hey, you're live. I'm talking to you on the phone. Go ahead and.
Yeah, I restarted my computer.
Okay, you have a link in your email.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I wanted to try Instagram Live.
Oh, well, we're live at the moment, so let's just get on and we'll get through this.
Okay.
Bye.
We'll get through.
All right, folks. And by the way, count the number of tangents. It's a game we like to play. How many tangents does Tom go on during this hour? But,
okay.
That was Katrina, as you probably heard. She was having some technical difficulties, and so she'll be joining us in a few minutes. But I was saying to Kristine, I like to keep things simple. I call it the 4 pillars of Parkinson's. Have a great doctor, have a great support group, and have a great exercise program. And I forgot what the 4th pillar was, but not as important as a great exercise program. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't know what causes Parkinson's. We don't know how to cure it. All we have is that this is my big pet peeve. We have the medication called dopamine, which is the gold standard, and which was from the early 1970s. So you think after 50 some years we can find another standard, but until we do, the thing that we know is that exercise delays the progression. Important to say, it delays the progression of disease. And now I'm going to stop talking because that's what I do for a living, and I'm going to let Kristine tell us all about what she's doing.
So I am happy to say that this is truly the first book on exercise for Parkinson's. And I was truly fortunate to work with the 3 top Parkinson's experts in the world. I worked with Dr. Jay Alberts from the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Professor, he goes by both, Boston Bloom, who is the world expert on Parkinson's in the Netherlands, and Professor Daniel Korkus, who is at Northwestern University. And you say pillars, I call them they are the 3 pillars of Parkinson's exercise. And their 3 research studies are pretty much the 3 that are the gold standards, if you will, for why we have the research that gave us exercise and what to do for exercise to reduce symptoms for Parkinson's, and also that gave us the prognosis that exercise. There we go. Oh, there's the 3. Yes.
There's the 3 amigos.
The 3 amigos. The prognosis that exercise is the only thing that potentially can slow the progression of the disease. At this point, medicine and surgery help us, but they can't slow progression of disease. Mm-hmm. So,
one of the things I do is I like to play around with to test things. And if I'm going to do some activities, like if I'm going to ride my bike, or I'm going to pickleball or something, and I'm due to take my parking meds, I'll just kind of skip the meds just to see what happens. And I don't know for this, but I like to think when I'm riding my bike or I'm playing pickleball, for whatever reasons, I don't have Parkinson's. I don't feel the well, I'm fortunate too that my off time is somewhat limited. I get about 3.5 hours of good time, half hour of off time-ish. But when I'm playing sports or riding the bike, none of that seems to matter. Hey, here she is. This is our co-host, Katrina. Live from somewhere south of Tom Cosentino in the mountains is Katrina.
Mountains of Virginia. Yes, I is a hillbilly. Hello, Chris.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And for
Talking
the new
about
listeners, this is something
favorite
like
topic.
this is something that we like to put out in front. Both Katrina and I, this is who we are. This is our symptoms. We don't try to hide anything.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is give you that raw thing for those people who don't know what I mean, I've been 8.5 years. Katrina's been longer, but our symptoms are so vastly different. It's such a unique disease.
It is such a unique disease, and it's unique to everyone. And one of the things I will say, and what you'll read in the book is that, and Dr. Bloom talks about, is that medicine and surgery, what we want people to do is to take them to help you exercise.
Yeah.
That, it's whatever you need so that you can exercise is what we want people to do.
Someone once told me when you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, your second full-time job is exercising.
That's what I say in the book. This is your new job.
Yeah.
This is your new job, because there's nothing more important than taking care of you with your Parkinson's. And what's going to do the best thing for you is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And finding out what is going to work for you. And it's going to change over time. The exercise, whatever the cocktail, I don't know if you've gotten to the cocktail, whatever that cocktail is for you, and how it's going to change over time for you, because it will. I love the cocktail. Everybody loves the cocktail.
Tell us what that cocktail represents.
So the cocktail, the book really breaks down, I call it it's a marriage of the science behind the exercise, which is, it's important to understand, but some people don't like the science, then they may go, and I told Tom this.
I was waiting for this.
The book is written so you can read it in any order. So some people don't like the science, and they may skip it, and that's fine. Some people love the science and they want to read every single word of it, and they want to read every word of the science. Some people love all the stories and they like to read the stories first, and that's great. And so it's really a marriage of the science behind the exercise. Then you have all the exercise prescriptions, if you will, that come from the science. And then you have all the stories that of people who have taken those exercise protocols and implemented them into their life.
Correct. I found that when I first was diagnosed, I didn't understand the importance of exercise. And now what I try to do is exercise. I'm doing something every day of the week. It's funny, when Kristine, I had the pleasure of sort of proofreading the book for her. And that's when she was laughing earlier. I said, I love the book, but there's too much stories. Where's the math? I want the math. And but it was I like the fact that it does, she said, it blends in both sides of the brain. There's the logical brain, which is here, and the emotional brain or the social brain. And for me, the logical brain is much bigger than the social brain, unfortunately. But I love going to, when I read something, I generally like these big NIH studies. I read the opening and then I go right down to the conclusion, and just because that's a lot of math in between. But this is a very easy to read book.
It is an easy to read book. And so for someone like you, you can go to the back to all the citations, and you can go read every single report that goes with all of those breakdowns. So you can really go way down into the weeds where I went.
I always thought that I was fairly knowledgeable on the different areas of Parkinson's and such. But Kristine and I talked the other day, and something I was doing on my bicycle, I had no idea I wasn't doing it the proper way. There was a better way of doing it. I was thinking that in the sense that I had to keep I was trying to do those intervals, pedal really hard for 30 seconds, pedal soft for. But Kristine, tell us what the right way is to ride a bike.
So, there's lots of different ways to ride a bike. And it really just depends on where you're coming from and where you're starting. So if you are, when we're starting with Parkinson's, our first goal is that we want to get our cadence higher. So that's our first goal, because when we're riding a bike, we want our heart rate to go up and we want to get our cadence. Our goal is to get to 80 RPM.
Mm-hmm.
And people first, they go, oh my gosh, I can't do 80 RPM. And you'll read in the book, I have a lot of people, and most people start like at 50, and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And they may start at 50 for 10 minutes at a time, and that's fine. And the goal is over time to get our time in what we call in the saddle longer, and our time at higher speeds and our heart rate longer. So then you're working on those intervals of time. So because when we're working at the higher speeds is what changes the brain for the Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. That's what they found. Dr. Alberts has found for cycling. So he has found that with the cycling and the heart rate along with higher cadence is what helps for the Parkinson's. So you want to, and you can read this all in depth in the book, obviously.
Chapter 7.
Did you read the chapter?
Chapter 7, yes.
Yes, chapter 7. So we want to start, and maybe when you first start, maybe you ride at 75 or whatever, wherever you are. You start these little intervals where shorter amounts of times, and you kind of increase your speed, and over time you just keep working on that speed. And then over time you look back and you go, oh, this is so easy. I can do this now. Mm-hmm. And that happens. A lot of people, they're surprised. They're like, it didn't take me that long to get here, and now this is too easy. So then they're like,
RPMs is my goal. So I know every inside bike or whatever is probably somewhat different. They all have an incline, they have a resistance, and they have an RPM.
Right.
Well, is there should you just try to find the resistance and an incline that allows you to ride at that, say, 80 RPMs for a period of time?
Yes.
So
you want enough, when you're first starting, you just want enough resistance on that bike that you're not bouncing in the saddle.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then if it gets too easy, that you can hit, like if you're already hitting like 80, 85, I have a woman in her 70s that I coached yesterday, and she can hit 80, 85, 90 easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a piece of cake for her. She's been cycling a long time though. So for her, we start adding in power now. So we start adding in resistance. Mm-hmm. So now she's at these higher speeds. Speed is easy for her. Higher cadence is easier. So now she's at higher cadence, and now we start adding more resistance at those higher.
So while you're sitting on that bike, how long should you consider riding the bike for? Is it like at least a half hour?
Right. So your goal should be to get to 30 minutes.
Right.
And then when you can get to 30 minutes, if you can get at some point to 45 minutes, that's even better.
Mm-hmm. So that's good. Because I was always worried about, I would do my heart rate, and I'm like, I can't get my heart rate over 105, but I'm pedaling my butt off. And I wasn't sure if that meant I wasn't pedaling hard enough, or if I was, and I was so concerned with the heart rate as opposed to just the RPMs.
Yeah, when you're cycling, you just worry about that. I would be more concerned with did you check your perceived exertion?
Well, I had the list, the 5 different perceived exertions. Yesterday was my my last ride on the bike doing interval training. Uh-huh. Today, I haven't got on the bike yet today because I cheated and played some pickleball this morning.
Well, that's okay. How did you feel?
Oh, I feel like it's funny because doing the intervals, it was hard because they would raise the elevation really high and raise the incline. And then they would say, we want you at 95 RPMs or something. I'm like, whoa, slow down there. I can hit 60, 75 RPMs at that, but I can't go over that.
But you did notice it said drop the whole stack if you need to, right?
Yeah, so I kept playing with the resistance and the incline to get to a point. You know, it's funny. I felt like I was cheating because every time I changed it, it was a program. They said, we'll change it. We noticed you changed the program. We'll adjust it in the future. I'm like, oh, God, I'm getting caught cheating.
No, don't feel like that. Don't feel like that. Always feel like I'm working my way. I'm working my way up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's fine.
So I know with Doctor, the doctor with the pedaling for Parkinson's program, but what else do you recommend for people with Parkinson's for exercises?
Okay, so there are a ton in the book. There's a ton of things to choose from. But the first thing I tell people to do is, number one, I ask people, what do you like to do?
Right.
That's the first thing. What do you like to do? And a lot of times people
watch TV.
A lot of times people say they don't know. And so I will say, what would you like to try? There's boxing, there's cycling. The first thing you have to do, level one is number one, the first and foremost thing we have to get. You have to have cardio 3 times a week. If you do, there's 2 things we talk about, and that is that you have to have this this endurance cardio 3 times a week. If you do nothing else. And so if we try to figure that out, and then the second thing is, if you have such limited time that you can't do anything else, and then I do recommend Rock Steady Boxing if they can do that. If there is nothing else that they can do, the circuit training in Rock Steady Boxing is excellent.
Chapter 10.
Yeah. The class is set up to do that the intensity levels in a Rock Steady Boxing mixes so much into one class that it's a great, if I can do nothing else in my life, and I only have one thing in my cocktail, I can only do one thing because my life is so crazy, then I would try to do a Rock Steady Boxing class. And because I get that question a lot. And then if not, then you have to do some kind of, because it's really hard, because you're trying to get the cardio, you're trying to get strength training, you're trying to get all of that in there. And Rock Steady Boxing does do all of that in a workout.
No, that's good, because it's hard to discipline yourself to have, like, I can only imagine how busy your days are. And I'm retired, and somehow I don't know what the hell I do all day, but I'm busy doing it. But what I found for myself is, if I don't have a written plan of attack, if you will, and I follow that plan, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and it's hard. And I know for me too, it's like, if I don't, do my own workout, like at my appointed time that I think I'm going to do it, it doesn't happen.
I'll see if I can show you this. I don't know if you can see this, but this is my little exercise room. I got the bike in the corner. I got the TRX hanging off the wall. I got a little boxing thing there. Yeah. And I don't know what you call that little thing next to the boxing, but it's a round circle with like a cup on it for balancing.
Uh-huh.
And I try to do that balancing as well. And I have a little yoga. Well, that's the vacuum cleaner cord. But I also do yoga right there.
Nice. Yeah. So, it's the whole cocktail is, you want to get your cardio level 1. Then you have your Parkinson's. You want to do your Parkinson's specific work for level 2. And there's a whole list of resources for picking what is going to be your Parkinson's specific work. Then you have strength training for level 3. Level 4 is like your yoga, flexibility. And of course, level 5 is what we love to do, just things that make us happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for me, that was dancing. I always loved to dance. And I don't know if you know about this, but this is, if you can tell, it's Dance for PD.
Oh, well, see, that is definitely a class that is considered probably for level 1, Dance for PD. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. And this is the DVD you can have for at home, and it has and they also have online classes.
Oh yeah.
And he is just wonderful. I've talked to him personally. I would love to have him on the podcast one day. He just has a heart. Rosenthal, I think is his last name. And he has a heart for the Parkinson's community. But there's also one that's not Parkinson's geared, but I I love the way it is because it's not choreographed, but she also does a lot of power moves, and they also have yoga and Young at Heart. It's called Body Groove, and it's just you move the way you can with your body. So for like me, I have, as you can tell, I have DBS, so that's why I had it. My dyskinesia was pretty bad earlier, so I have an iPod, and I have a main program setting and a dyskinesia program. So I went on the dyskinesia program, and it's not as bad as it was before. I just turned it down a little bit, and now I feel a little better. But Body Groove, the first one I saw on YouTube was to Another One Bites the Dust, which is one of my absolute favorite songs ever. And it was just moving around. And then the next one I saw, she almost did like PWR moves from I used to do at the YMCA, where she'd, do those kind of moves. But it's very comfortable for your body. I have before Parkinson's, I got a spinal fusion because I was a nurse for almost 20 years. And I had a patient one time faint, and me instinctively decided to get behind her when she fainted, and her and all the equipment, the IV pole, everything came down on me.
Oh,
And the patient wasn't injured, but I have 2 titanium rods and 4 screws in my lower back, and I have more degeneration above my my hardware. So, and also they have, let's see, groovy yoga and Pilates.
Yep.
And she's very encouraging. She used to be a choreographer, and she had an eating disorder. So she's very much loving yourself and feeling better and encouraging.
Yes.
And she has, and that's very important too, with depression and anxiety being the top 2 non-motor symptoms.
Yeah.
Those are anxiety I struggle with the most. And and they also have one with the family. They have one that's geared toward senior citizens. It's so as long as you can find something you love, like my church has a pickleball court, so we're getting together some people, Parkinson's patients and non-Parkinson's people that like pickleball, and we're getting us all together. And it's one thing where I went, my husband was in the military, and I went from Colorado Springs to the Appalachian part of Virginia. Colorado, we had everything. We had Rock Steady. We actually, at our support group, one of the ladies did Dance for PD. There was 3 different Dance for PD classes. I went to a resource wilderness. I don't even have a neurologist nearby.
Yeah.
We have to drive an hour for a neurologist, but they don't really know anything about Parkinson's. So for a Parkinson's neurologist, it's 2 hours. But for me with DBS, I have to go 4 hours. And that's every 3 months because I get Botox in my feet and my shoulder and my leg for dystonia.
Yeah.
And they've been amazing. I wouldn't change it for anything because they also do pain management for me and and neurosurgery just to keep an eye on my back because I'm trying to avoid surgery, and I do pain management there as well. And so so now I'm trying to get pedaling for Parkinson's at the YMCA. I finally got the contact because I didn't like the owner. The owner was like, well, what's in it for me? Kind of thing. He's like,
yeah.
Well, isn't the YMCA supposed to help the community? And he was more about, I'm like, well, I know in Colorado Springs, they used to charge $5 for non-members and it was free for members, there's that. Or he goes, well, that doesn't, that wouldn't pay whoever was going to do it. And, because I know being with Davis Finney, they would have a grant that would help training from their people.
Right.
I offered that, and that wasn't enough. But I have another contact from somebody in my church, and so I'm hoping I can get more get more cooperation, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
Well, let me call the Y for you. I got this pent up type A frustration that I can get rid of. 'Cause, it's when we were at my 2.5 years ago when I lived in Maryland, our YMCA, we did the pedaling for Parkinson's. It was free to anybody who had Parkinson's. But more importantly, if on the days that you went for cycling, they allowed you to use the gym facilities as well. Mm-hmm. And then you get from that extreme to your extreme. And, for me, I like to keep things, oh God, I can't put this. I miss working, and sometimes if I have the opportunity to try to help someone make a better decision, that's a nice way of putting it, especially as it comes to Parkinson's. That's what I want to do.
I'm sorry, I forgot to take the vitamin. But
a couple of things that I hear within the exercise, and the first is my biggest thing, that other than saying when you go to a restaurant, someone says, "What are we having?" I don't know. I know what I'm having, but I don't know what you're having. But when people, I just went off on a tangent. My brain just stopped working. Oh, when people say any exercise is good exercise, that just drives me crazy, because there's truth in that. Like if I'm sitting on the couch all day and I get up and walk around the block, that's better than sitting on the couch. But as I know, Kristine, I'm hoping you'll back is like, but if you're just taking a walk with your wife or walk with your dog, you're just taking a walk. You're not exercising. It's got to be that half-hour high-intensity exercise.
Well, and we talk about that in the book, and Dr. Alberts addresses that quite clearly, in that if we are talking about exercise being medication,
yes,
for Parkinson's, then we're talking about using an exercise prescription, where there is a dose, there's a time, there's a frequency, there's all of these things that we are defining. And so if telling someone that they can just go garden or walk the dog or whatever is not going to be high enough activity to be qualified as medication for brain change.
I love that idea of writing a prescription.
Neuroprotective.
I love that idea of writing a prescription for exercise, because people take prescriptions more seriously. If my doctor,
that's what this is. Yeah. That's what so all the research they are doing, and it's been 20 years of it, is to get an exercise prescription.
Mm-hmm.
And exercise being medication. So, and that's the difference. And there's a whole section in the book on that, between what is exercise versus activity and the difference between the two.
And the other thing some people say, I don't like to exercise because it hurts. So well, you have Parkinson's pain and you have exercise pain. If you're going to have pain either way, why don't you choose the pain that's going to help you have less pain in the future? And it's just like people, they find the barriers to doing things that they shouldn't have.
I think that, and I get this question a lot. How do we convince people? How do we convince people that, you exercise because it's work. If it was a pill, you would take the pill. All right. If you had this pill that said, this is going to slow the progression of your disease, and this is going to help your Parkinson's symptoms, and they would take it. But exercise will do all of these things.
Right.
However, you are actually going to have to do something physical every day. And so what people say, well, how can we convince these people that it's worth it? It's worth it. And I think that one of the things that is not conveyed enough, or not, the connection is not made, that when you do nothing, when inactivity is chosen, the disease is progressing at an accelerated pace.
And I was in sales all my life, and there's something I call a Doug question. Like, if I can show you something to make your life better, would you be willing to take it? And I'm thinking, to me, that's a Doug question because nobody would ever say no to that. But if you present the exercise program in a sense, like if I can show you something that costs you absolutely nothing, there's no copay, there's no doctor referral, it's going to give you a better life with not going to stop your Parkinson's, but slow the progression. Would you take it? And no one's going to say no to that.
Until you would think.
You would think. And then they say, okay, it's called exercise. It doesn't cost you anything. There's free. I mean, you don't have to go to the gym. If you got internet connection, you got YouTube. There are a million exercise programs on YouTube from good organizations. It's just and part of what Kristine and I are trying to do in a sense with these conversations is break down the barriers to people not living the best life they can live.
Well, and it does this, it improves your quality of life. There is no doubt about it that exercise, and here's the deal, 3 days a week is the minimum you have to do.
Right.
If you can exercise 3 days a week, you're going to improve just level 1, 3 days a week, you're going to improve your quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read, there's over 20 stories in that book of people from all ages, of all different backgrounds. And when you read how exercise has changed their lives for in all different capacities, it's truly amazing and inspiring.
I had a couple of surgeries, unfortunately, the last few years. I had back surgery and I had a hip replacement. And the thing that I really missed and I felt lethargic was not being able to go out there and exercise. Because I couldn't wait till my doctor said finally he cleared me for exercise after the hip surgery. I'm like, thank you. And he goes, take it easy. But not being able to exercise that's hard because it's become part of my routine.
And back to your point about, anxiety and depression, exercise helps with non-motor symptoms so much, even more so than, the motor symptoms. It's amazing how much it helps with the non-motor.
So from what I'm hearing, exercise can help give you a better quality of life with Parkinson's. It can help you lose weight. It can also help you gain muscle mass. It can also help you with those cognitive issues. My God, where do I sign up?
Right. Well, and only that, but when you read about how it can help, the research in there about preventing falls, keeping you from going to the hospital for I want to say the whole falling and keeping you from ending up in the there's this whole section in the book about hip fractures and all these things that you can avoid down the road from sarcopenia and dynapenia, the whole thing on strength training that people just aren't even aware of, that is something that happens to us as we age and that is preventable. And all you need to do is strength train. I mean, there's just so much that we just don't realize. And it's like you're already battling with the Parkinson's part of it, but then you've got just the aging part of it that adds to it. Right. But it's preventable.
And it's interesting. One of the things I love about playing pickleball is first, it's a good group of people. So you're building like a support group, if you will. And it's also good exercise. It's hand-eye coordination.
Absolutely.
There's so many different levels that it impacts with Parkinson's patients.
That's actually that's your level 2 right there you're doing. Level 2.
It's the only sport that I know of where the older you are and the more type of, stretch bands you have around your body and ankle braces and knee braces, the better you are. Because all these older people are out there. They got the knee braces on. They got the elbow braces. They look like they're just got out of a geriatric ward, and they just kick the crap out of me on the park or the pickleball court. It's humbling.
But you're having a great time.
Man, we have so much fun.
I had a specialized physical therapist for Parkinson's, and she was amazing. Like, she would have me do my walks, and when walks and turn around. But while I was doing that, she would go back and forth on my right and left hand side with flashcards.
Oh, wonderful!
and back and forth to, keep my cognitive and stuff
Mhm.
going. And she, kept me. The only thing I would ever fail at was like doing a sobriety test, where you put one foot in front of the other. I will never pass that sobriety test. And but the way I would try to rebalance myself, she told me way back in the beginning, she goes, "You used to be a dancer, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Do you still keep up with it?" And I said, "Not as much as I used to, because I get so frustrated when I'm off balance, because But she goes, "Don't stop, because I can tell from the way your body tries to stay on balance, and that you have retained so much of your balance is because you were a dancer.
Mhm.
And the way your muscles are, keep dancing." She goes, "Don't be so self-conscious about the balance issues.
Right.
Just keep dancing." And I've always remembered that, and so I keep doing it. And I've even thought about doing little short videos and trying to inspire other people to do it and not be ashamed of it, because it's, you know, um, because like I was saying before, it helps with the mental health part,
Mm-hmm.
not and the getting the dopamine and the endorphins going, because especially on those, the more, what do you call it? Sorry, I'm having a word finding issue. Like the more upbeat, up tempo songs.
Yes.
If you get, the 50s rock and roll. I grew up with everything. I have a very eclectic taste in music. Everything from BTS with my daughter. She's got me into the Korean pop band.
Oh yeah.
And to back with Elvis and the Supremes and Motown with my mom, to bluegrass with my dad. So, and then I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I love soft rock. I love Madonna, Duran Duran, all that. So, but in 70s rock. So, or disco. My daughter had her 17th birthday party on Christmas Eve, and we had a disco theme, and I did the playlist, and yeah, we had a blast. And so you have to find something you'll love and that'll stick with you. And it's really helped encourage my daughter, because she's 17, and she has fluctuated in her weight. And she says, because she got to go to the Davis Finney Leadership Conference this past year, September, and I hadn't realized she had never seen anybody else with Parkinson's except me. And first she asked me, "Why does everybody's face look the same?" And I said, "I call that resting Parkinson's face." And I said, "It's the mask-like face. It's, my face used to be much more emotive. That was a very early symptom my mother noticed. She thought I was on too much Ativan. I wasn't even on Ativan at the time. But, and she noticed like the speech, because sometimes my speech will get really gravelly, or Davis Finney almost speaks in a whisper.
Yeah, he has a low voice.
Yeah. So
actually, my wife is waiting for my voice to get lower from Parkinson's. That's the only upside to it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and so I need to get back into LSVT. So, and I actually found one. It's about 45 minutes away, which is not bad. Or I actually found one lady who does it online, so I might do it that way, do telehealth. But she also said that she met this one girl who was 25, and she was a caregiver for her mom. And because Erica's not my caregiver, she does know how to put my Ambrosia together. That's my rescue inhaler.
Yeah.
She, in case my husband's not home or something. And that's usually about the only medication I need help with. Sometimes, because I have carpal tunnel in both of my hands, I'll need help with my clonazepam at night just to open it because it's, it's one of those peel and put under the tongue things.
Mm-hmm.
But usually that's the only thing I need help with. And she's usually very good about that. Or if I'm like getting, having an off period right before my medication, I may need a lift off the couch because I don't tremor. I have the bradykinesia or the heaviness and the slowness on my right side.
Mm-hmm.
And I just get very tired and very weak. But she met people who were diagnosed for only like 3 years and who are a lot farther along than me because with young onset, it's a much slower progression because I've had it for like 12 years now, since like 2011. And DBS did make a huge difference because I was using a walker and everything. And she was 5 when I was diagnosed. So she's really only known me with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And I have a son who will soon be 30 who knew me as a single mom before I was married and knew me as a nurse and, going out with my friends and being, a completely different mom. So it's like my 2 kids had 2 different mothers. So, but once she got to see me in the group talking with Tom about the podcast and
She likes
everything. Yeah, she likes Tom. She thinks
Or
he's
judgment.
funny.
No.
She thinks he's really funny. And very nice. And she can't watch the podcast though because that's too cringe. And I embarrassed her because her chemistry teacher came up to her and said that he saw the podcast. And she was so embarrassed. That was like
The thing about being funny for me is there's something like you can either choose to be happy, you can choose to be miserable. Yep. And I choose happiness. And I'm going to, my sister said to me once, the problem with you is you just don't care. And there's some truth to that. If I'm going to be who I am and I'm going to try to help make you laugh and somebody doesn't like it, I really don't care. I mean, I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but at the same point, I like to say I'm a lightning rod for stupidity because if I can make fun of myself or a situation, then we're laughing. In that brief period of time when you're laughing, you don't have Parkinson's. And you get a better, not quite the same as exercising, but you do get a better look on life and it makes you happy. And happy people are good people.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the first day, after the classes and stuff, which some of the things she found a little boring, but she scribbled. Well, I wouldn't say scribbled. She's a very good artist, so she made some really beautiful little drawings and stuff. And but some of them she had a lot of really good input to me. We had a lot of good talks about it, and I wanted to rest. And this other girl who was 25 years old and her mother was still pretty young, probably in her early 60s, late 50s. And the girl was 25, and we saw them downstairs, and they invited Erica to go Mall of America with them.
Oh.
And I felt comfortable, and I said, she goes, "Please, Mom." And I said, "Yeah, it's okay." I said, "Do you have your debit card with you?" And I said, I'll put some money on there for you, and you go have fun. And she went, and I guess the mother had only had Parkinson's for like 3 years, but the mom had to stop every, like, Erica, of course, ever said every 5 minutes, but Erica can exaggerate a little bit. And her daughter had to take her to the bathroom and had to help her in the bathroom and help her, I mean, literally in the bathroom. And Erica was like, "Oh my gosh," like, you know, and she said she's only had it for 3 years, and she goes, "Mom, we couldn't even make it halfway through the Mall of America." And I said, "I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry you didn't get to do with, all the stuff she wanted to do, because there was a place there that made cotton candy in the shape of the animated characters from BTS, and that's where she really wanted to go." And so she was so disappointed, and I told her I'd take her there the next day. And when we went the next day, I made it all the way through, and I was, walking around. I did need to stop and rest once or twice. But Erica said, "Mom, I'm so very proud of you. I have seen you differently, and I'm so very sorry that I've been giving you such a hard time about Parkinson's." She goes, "But after seeing so many people that have had it less time than you, and they're farther along, I see how much you fight it. I see, because she used to get very, she'd like have to go in her room if I'm doing my body groove or if I'm dancing or something. She'd get very embarrassing. She cannot look if I'm dancing, even in the privacy of her own home, but especially if I'm in a real mood and want to embarrass her, and I do it in the grocery store." That's kind of payback. My mom used to do that all the time too. And I enjoy it. To me, it puts a smile on my face. It lifts my mood. I tell her that. And she said, she goes, "You're my inspiration, Mom." She goes, and she goes, "I'm going to start focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't do."
Cool. I like that.
I do too.
She was, 16 at the time, and I'm like, wow. And I had to cry because, and it has really helped our relationship. Of course, we still get in silly little fights, and because she's got way too much hormones and thinks she knows everything, where she has to educate me, because she's gifted.
I don't miss those days.
She's gifted, so she's too smart for her own good. But it's when you find that exercise, or even 2 or 3 different kinds of exercise that you like, you have to find something that you're really passionate for.
You do.
I'm hoping, and something that you're going to enjoy, because that's the only thing that you're going to want to get up and do.
Yeah.
Because normally I hate exercise. I can't stand it. And I've struggled with my weight since I was, since I was a teenager, went through puberty, and in my 20s, off and on, back and forth. And I've lost a lot of weight recently because I went off sodas, and that's helped my A1C, and it's, but it's also helped Parkinson's. I've been able to be more mobile and all of that, and it's helped my symptoms. I don't get dyskinesic as much. That's usually from stress. And I don't get dystonia. I've only had dystonia twice in the last month. Before I was getting at least once a day, once or twice a day. And a lot of it's because now I'm able to do the dancing more, either the dance for PD or my body groove. I'm on a 28-day challenge, so that helps too.
Nice.
And I'm hoping the pedaling for Parkinson's I can get at the YMCA now that David Spinney kind of has the rights to it or whatever. They're going to help me get that there.
Yay.
And the hospital, I spoke to the CEO. He's willing to, and he got me in touch with the new head of physical therapy, and they're going to train some of their physical therapists in specialized training that my physical therapist went through, to get the cognitive stuff along with the physical therapy for Parkinson's patients.
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure what that's called, but we're going to work that out. And I'm also going volunteering at the local assisted living. There's 3 ladies who have Parkinson's, and so I'm going to start forming relationships with them. For some reason, I got like 7 boxes of the Every Victory Counts books. And so I'm going to pass those out and start to mentor relationships with them. And that helps me feel better. Helps because I miss being a nurse, of course.
Yeah.
And you also have to find a passion and a purpose in your own life. You can't just give up. And I think so many people, when they're first diagnosed, they just give up. This is too overwhelming, too much work. And that's initially why I started the podcast, because I started it in the pandemic. It was just me and audio. And I had learned how to record it. And then a friend of mine I would send it to her and she'd edit it for me and do the intro and outro music. And it was mostly reading from Davis Finney's Every Victory Counts. This is what the symptoms to look for, non-motor symptoms, motor symptoms. Because that was a big deal to me. Because as a nurse, I knew the motor symptoms. I had no idea about the non-motor symptoms. And those bug me the worst, is the non-motor symptoms. The cognitive stuff, the memory issues, the word finding issues, because as you probably noticed, I'm a talker.
No.
And not being able to multitask. I used to be able to memorize 10 patients' medications for the day and all of that. And not being able to do all of that anymore. I had to go through a therapist in the stages of grief for not having my job anymore.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to find your purpose and your passion in life and not give up. Because I saw so much misinformation about medication.
Oh, yeah. The internet's not a friendly place.
Yeah.
No. And that's why none of us are, I know you have a BA. But I'm no longer a health professional, so I don't know if we did a disclaimer, but when we talk about medication, this is layman's terms. Always talk to your healthcare professional before doing any changes with exercise or medications or anything, making any changes to your routines. Always speak to your doctor first and make sure it's okay. We always try to do that disclaimer every episode.
Yeah, and the views expressed today do not represent Davis Finney. They're just my view, her view. Because sometimes I think with my views, Davis Finney wants to be as far away as possible from my views.
Oh, Tom, can you see or hear Gregory? Gregory Richer.
I can reach. You mean reach out to him?
He just put a message up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have the comment section up. Let me do that. Yeah, we had Greg on last week. I'd like to say that's one of the better. Not that this isn't great, but it was one of the better ones we had as well.
Hey, Gregory.
Tom, no, I cannot see or hear you, Greg, which is actually not a bad thing. Not necessarily.
In the show.
Unfortunately,
if I see comment, everyone can see and hear you. I don't see comments. I guess I don't get to see them.
Yeah, the big thing I've noticed is that the most views that we get, because I put this up on Buzzsprout and it goes, and Buzzsprout puts it out on our biggest platform seems to be Apple Podcasts, but we also go out on Google.
Oh, wonderful.
Castbox and Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, all of those all those platforms.
Great.
And then Spotify Music now has a separate Spotify for podcasters, so I put it up on that one.
We're
I
everywhere.
also put it up on YouTube. I think we're up to 42 or 43 subscribers now. Woo! But I do have one short on there that got 2,500 views, and all it is me walking into the doctor's office right before they turn my DBS on. And I don't know why that got so many views. Probably because I made a what do you call it? A double entendre joke. Because I'm walking in and the nurse goes, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes, I'm ready to get turned on." And that's all I said. That's all I said. And I remember when I went in there and they turned it up way too high and I froze and I couldn't talk and I couldn't move. And then they turned it down. And while they were adjusting me, my husband was, not really whispered. He asked my doctor, "How can I do that at home?" And that's because that's how his sense of humor is.
Yeah.
And that's his relationship with my doctor. Because he told my doctor once, he goes, I have a new diagnosis for you, doctor. And he goes, "What?" He goes, "I call it mean downers. It's in the evening, Katrina has mean downers. When the sun goes down, Katrina gets mean." So
yeah, I have after 7 Tom and before 7 Tom.
Yep. And we were at a Davis Finney event in Charlottesville, which is about 4 hours away. And it was amazing. Oh my gosh, we were swamped. I gave away 70 books. It was unbelievable. There were so many people. And this was a really cool, it's called The Park. And they had the Rock Steady boxing there. All the, all the accoutrements, the bags and stuff. That was a big thing for them. They also had other exercise classes, had bikes. And then they also had an area for the support groups. They also had education groups. It's the Parkinson's PA Activity and Recreation Center in Charlottesville. Because Charlottesville is where the University of Virginia Medical Center is. That's the biggest movement disorder clinic. Actually, I think it's the only one in the state of Virginia.
Okay.
There might be some. Oh, that's not it's the closest one to me. There's some on Eastern Virginia and some in Northern Virginia. But overall, for the rest of Virginia, it's only Charlottesville. So, that was an amazing. I wish I could get that out here, but that'll have to be in the future. But they were so friendly to me. They let me have my table outside. All the other vendors were outside. And it was and we were just so inundated. And Jim was such a help to me. And he would tell everybody all about Davis Finney and try to keep track. And then we had the Ambrosia representative that was there. And he asked me about Ambrosia, and because I was one of the very first people, at least on the West Coast, that I know of that actually tried Ambrosia when it first came out. Because my doctor was on the committee or board or whoever working with Michael J. Fox to come up with Ambrosia. And he was so ready when it came out for me to try it. He said I would be the perfect candidate. because of the young onset and where I was, and because of my off episodes would be perfect. And the fact that I got dystonia and I came in off my meds, he videotaped me. And but with the exercise, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I am curious about your ambrosia. How does it work? Does it work well for you?
Yes, it does. It's quite expensive for most people. I almost feel guilty sometimes, because I have military healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
My husband served 22 years in the military between the Marines and the Army. When we were active duty, this was free, actually. Mm-hmm. And Rytari, I take Rytari as my main carbidopa levodopa.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the other ambassadors. She was very upset on one of our support groups, and she said she pays, I think it was almost $300 a month copay for Rytari, and she was losing her grant or something. It comes like this, and it was funny because the rep had never seen anybody actually take ambrosia. I don't know how long he had been a rep, but that was rather amusing to me. So I said, well, I had been on my feet for like 2.5 hours, or almost, and it was 3.5 hours by then, and it was 3:30. I take my meds at 4. I was definitely feeling off, like my right side was getting heavy. I was dragging my leg. I said, well, one thing I noticed, I only did this once. I took my Rytari and my ambrosia at the same time, and I never did it again. For the first time in my life, because before that I always said if I ever had hallucinations, I would know what reality was.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, you don't.
You don't?
Nope. I hallucinated for the very first time and the last time. It was horrible. It was visual and tactile and auditory. It was rats and snakes.
Oh my!
And bugs. And it was like on me, and I could hear them around, and it was awful.
Gosh.
So I wait. This kicks in roughly 10 minutes or less, and lasts for about an hour to an hour and a half. It's pure levodopa. There's no carbidopa because
the
carbidopa is really for the digestive system. It's so you don't throw up the levodopa because your digestive system can't handle pure levodopa. And it's really easy. This cap comes off. Then you have this inner little thing that comes off. And there's these little blister packs are very easy to pull apart for, even Parkinson's patients. And I can do this without puncturing it. So, and I can save these for later. And then you just peel back, and the peel back is very easy. Just my carpal tunnel sometimes bothers me. And there's 2 capsules for 1 dose. So, how many is in the pack? It's 42 milligrams. I can't. I think there's like 14 or something like that. And then you just put the capsule in there and put that on until it clicks. And then when you breathe it in, you'll hear it go. You'll hear it whir. It'll make a whirring sound. And the funny thing is when I first took it, this is hilarious, but the directions said take one big puff, or like breathe all your air out and take one big puff. And as soon as you did that, you would cough like crazy. And it says, if you cough, take another puff. And I'm like, okay, but I cough like crazy. And I asked the nurse, I said, does it say anywhere to take some water? Or is it, negative not to take water? And we both looked through all the literature and it said nothing. So I said, can I have a glass of water for the next, And so I had some water. I took another puff from the first one. And so then on the next capsule, I took a glass of water and I just took a small puff, took another sip of water and made sure it went all in my mouth, covered my whole mouth. And then I took another little puff and that worked much better. I didn't cough it up at all. Sounds simple, right? Sounds logical, right? It took them until 2023 because of Dr. Graybert making such a stink about it for so many years, telling them this is what I'm seeing. Because Dr. Graybert after that would tell all of his patients because people were going off of Inbrija because it made him cough. And it was too difficult to take. Because it also, especially when you first start it, the first probably 4 or 5 doses, it almost burns because it's a new box, and it's because you get a new inhaler every time.
Oh, okay.
Until the inhaler kind of gets used to it, and so it took him until 2023, and then I said something about it, and he goes, "Oh, you're that Katrina." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Well, this I learned at the leadership conference in September. They told me that they got a memo or a letter saying that originally Dr. Graybert had a patient named Katrina who had been videotaped and recommended a glass of water, small puffs, glass of water in between." And they finally changed the entire training and paperwork and instructions on Inbrija, but it took them until 2022 to change everything. And it was because of me and Dr. Graybert.
That's funny. But, that's a strong advocacy for what you believe in, and it pays out.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
And do you find, though, that it helps if you take it right before your workout? Because they do recommend it before workouts.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, usually I don't take any medication, and I usually don't need any medication.
Okay.
And it does help my dyskinesia.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm, which I am a little bit right now, and it's just stress related. I can usually tell. Because I get nervous a little bit, and Tom thinks I'm brave when I go on the podcast, and
I've never been a good judge of character, though, so take that for what it's worth. Well, it's just amazing how you're willing to show the world what you are with Parkinson's.
Absolutely.
I find that very amazing. I don't know if I can do the same.
Oh, I'm sure you could. I have no doubt.
Yeah, but I may just show them a little bit of this. I'm faking this, by the way.
And it's just, I want people to see, the good, the bad, and the ugly part of Parkinson's. And it's funny because this part bothers my husband and my daughter a lot more than it bothers me, because it's not painful. It's a little buggy to me. It's hard to write, it's hard to type, but if we're out in public, oh my God, Erica's like, "Mom, let's hurry up. She'll even physically, push me along. And
yeah, I know that's gotta be the hard part of all this.
Yeah, she is so embarrassed. Even at home, but in public, it's much worse. And so, what I do is I try to finish up quickly, or I will have them finish up, and I'll go sit in the car. And and it does hurt my feelings, but I have to. And my husband's always afraid if I'm dyskinesic that I'll get manic or something, because I used before Parkinson's, a lot of people will get diagnosed with some kind of major mental health disorder. And Dr. Graber explained that to me, that's actually a symptom of the Parkinson's, a pre-symptom that happens before the motor symptoms, because by the time your motor symptoms start, you've lost 70 to 80% of your dopamine.
Right.
Yep.
And I was diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is where I would be hypomanic. And I would have the deep depressive episodes. Now, hypomanic is where I would spend a little too much money, not hundreds or thousands of dollars like true bipolar mania, but I'd spend over $100 at Dollar Tree. Or
Oh my God, $100.
I know I spent, well, at Christmas time, that's just because I was mad. I spent $125 at Dollar Tree. And
You crazy
he thought
girl.
I know. He thought Jim thought I did it because of Parkinson's, and I said nope. And my mom agreed with me. She said nope, she did it out of meanness. My mom's still Southern to the core. I said yep. It's because I was mad. You were trying to take my independence. And I didn't like it. So but with major depressive or hypomania, I would clean for like 6 hours, and I would forget to take my meds. I'd forget to eat, which not in itself is a total bad thing, but I would do things like clean out junk drawers and clean out cupboards, that kind of thing. So that's why the bipolar 2. And then they put me on these meds that would make things worse, and they would have a hard time properly medicating me. And then I'd get diagnosed with ADHD and all of this, and had until I even had always Parkinson's patients have the date of when they got diagnosed and the date their symptoms started. There's usually a gap between that.
Yes.
I always say I started having Parkinson's in 2011, but I wasn't officially diagnosed till 2014 because even though the symptoms started, I went to probably 6 or 7 neurologists who all said it was something physical, usually my neck or whatever, because of the weakness on my right side and the twitching, and did have some twitching on my ring finger, and my handwriting I had the micrographia where and my physical therapist said the micrographia should have been an immediate sign of Parkinson's, but nobody would listen to me about the cognitive stuff. And I kept telling them there's something wrong. And I kept trying to explain the word finding, where, simple words would be stuck somewhere between my brain and my mouth. And it would take, up to a minute before the word would pop out. And I said, that's not normal for me. And it would be even simple words, it would be medical words that I've known since I was 18. And I I said, and the depression and the anxiety and all of that. And they said, something is not right. And I can't multitask. I'm not focused. They said that was ADHD. And I even had one neurologist say I was faking it to get attention.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And needless to say, my meanness came out again, and I reported her to the boss of the hospital, and then I found out later that she got fired.
Good.
And I did that again to a primary doctor too. And that's why you have to be educated about Parkinson's. You have to be your own best advocate.
Yes, I was going to say that too.
And also your care partner, because Jim has been by my side and been an advocate for me as well, because when we moved to Northern Virginia, he started working in the executive medicine clinic where all the admirals and generals and and retired and their dependents went. So, and him being like he re-enlisted in the Army in his 30s. So he was like the oldest sergeant in the Army, I think. But he still had that Marine, Barents kind of thing. And the generals loved him. And soldiers were either afraid of him or highly respected him. One of two extremes.
Which isn't bad either way.
Right. So I saw 2 neurologists at the hospital that he worked at, and they were still saying it was my C-spine or something like that, or it was a pinched nerve or whatever. And I just went to him crying, and Jim's like, fine, I'll take care of it. So he called up there, and they knew who he was because he knew where he worked, because he worked with everybody. He worked with General John Allen, who was the leader of Afghanistan back in the day, who everybody knew. He also worked with some generals who had red folders, which meant they had armed security guards, and everybody knew Jim. So he called up there and he goes, I want my wife to be seen by the head of neurology, which was Dr. B. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. So, and he was a civilian doctor and an older doctor. And so we went to see him together, and I just cried to him. I said, this is my symptoms. I said, everybody thinks it's just the physical symptoms, but this is the mental symptoms that I'm displaying. And he gave me the most thorough neuro test out of everybody.
Good.
And he made me walk back and forth in the hallway and made me draw the little circles and memory test and all that, and did the test with the elbow and all that. And at the end, he said, I think you have Parkinson's. And that's because he goes, I don't think it's too far along, because the only thing I can really notice is your lack of arm swing on your right side and a little bit of gait. Your gait is a little off. And he said, because your memory's a little bit off, but not to the point where it was like really bad. It's just enough for me to notice.
Yeah.
And Jim to notice. And so he goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start you on Cinnamon. And if it takes away your symptoms, then you got Parkinson's.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then we'll have to talk about Parkinsonisms and all this other stuff, which I never knew there were Parkinsonisms.
Yeah.
And he said, which you really don't want, because those are harder to treat and they move a lot faster. So, and honestly, me and Jim we both at the same time breathed a sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually smiled and said, okay, at least we know, that this is probably what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And at least we know what we're fighting. So I started on the Cinemet the next day, and I noticed an immediate relief of my heaviness and my handwriting. I could start writing again.
Good.
Wow.
Now my handwriting is awful, but instantly I felt relief, and my arm could swing, and because I used to hold my arm up because I was embarrassed because it wouldn't move sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so ever since then, I started educating myself, and so did Jim, and we started learning about it. Dr. B was really good. Then we moved to Colorado, and I had to go through it again because the doctor didn't believe me that I had Parkinson, even though I'd been on Cinemet.
Already diagnosed and they didn't believe you?
Yep. I had been on Cinemet for like 3 years, and she did a crappy neuro exam, and because I had taken my medicine and I was completely on, I wasn't showing any symptoms. And so she gave me, she ordered a DAT scan, and because he was active duty, TRICARE paid for it all. I know DAT scans are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
They did a test run because I'm highly claustrophobic to the point where I have to take 6 milligrams of Ativan to get in an MRI. Because I've climbed out of them before. I've climbed out of CAT scans before.
No, wow.
I can get through CAT scans now, but MRIs freak me out. Oh my gosh.
I've fallen asleep in MRIs before.
But the DAT scan showed less dopamine on the left side of my brain, which of course was why I was having right-sided symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So she, even though that's not a definitive diagnosis, the way you can diagnose Parkinson's, that was another between that and Cinemet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And another doctor diagnosing me. That pretty much was, and then the PA I was working with, like on the next visit or the next one, she told me, she goes, you need to find yourself a movement disorder specialist, which I had never heard of. And I said, what is that? And I said, why? And she goes, because this doctor doesn't work with young onset very much. And that's a whole different, she works usually with old people, and she just medicates them pretty much into oblivion just until they die. And she goes, and I'm looking for a new job. And she goes, you need to be treated better than that.
That's a shame. That's
because my daughter was in elementary school at the time, and my husband, I think, was deployed at the time because he frequently deployed. And so that was means it was just me and my daughter. And so I took her advice. I looked up, there was 3 movement disorder clinics near Denver, which was about an hour away. But then I saw in the support group newsletter, which is a support group in Colorado Springs, is amazing. It's one of the largest in the country. That a Dr. Graybert was coming out of retirement because there was such a need for a Parkinson's doctor, and he was taking new clients of Parkinson's patients only. I said, well, I'll try, because he's local, shorter drive. He was going to work at UC Health, which was the big civilian healthcare center. And I got in and I saw him, and I instantly fell in love with him, as a doctor, because he's a good team. because he's a teaching doctor, which are my favorites. And I'm very picky on my doctors.
Oh, yeah.
Being a nurse, I could tell you stories. So he was amazing teaching doctor. And if you can, and he was a Parkinson specialist. He had worked for 10 years with the best of the best. And so I learned so much from him. And he let me be part of studies, and he would get me into, he would ask my advice because he's retired. He actually retired now, but he's the one that actually started the support group in Colorado Springs. And he had me speak on one of, I think it was about Ambrosia, actually. Me and him spoke together about Ambrosia a couple different times, a couple different places, but one of them was a support group. And then one was in front of a bunch of doctors. That was kind of weird. And then he also recommended Dr. Vansicle, who did my DBS, who is the leading neurosurgeon in the world for robotic DBS, where he can be asleep. I was like, thank you. I didn't want to be awake for DBS.
Yeah.
It's where the robots place the electrodes, and it's within a millimeter. And it was really weird because as soon as they place the electrode, because my dystonia was really bad. And as soon as they place the electrodes, without the generators, my dystonia stopped.
Wow.
It was really strange because it was that precise and it hit that spot in the brain. And so, and I don't get it as bad as I used to. I do get Botox for it every 3 months, and that helps a lot. But Dr. Grabert was the best, and he's still working on getting a movement disorder clinic started, and he would always ask my advice. And I said, you should also have a massage therapist. You should also have somebody who knows about mindfulness and relaxation techniques. And besides a psychologist or a therapist and a psychiatrist, I said you should have mental health workers in the clinic as well, along, because it'd be so much easier to have that all in one clinic.
Yeah.
And he took my advice, and that's what I think, especially if people have to quit work or give up their careers, find a place like Davis Finney being an ambassador, especially if you're in Virginia.
Okay.
I need help. I'm the only ambassador in Virginia. But find a place that helps you be happy and helps you give back, because that will keep you going. And with the exercise, because the mental health portion of it with the exercise and finding a community and finding the best doctor, and is as much a part of the what me and Tom call the care team that you need.
Absolutely.
Besides your care partner and spiritual as well, whatever your spiritual is very important.
Yeah, I don't want to be the bad guy, but we've been going on for an hour and a half now. So I think, but I want to say, Katrina, you every time you talk, you give a wonderful story, and yes, you impress the hell out of me. I'll always say that. So I just think what you're doing is amazing. Kristine, it's been an absolute pleasure. I just want to do a paid commercial break for a moment here. For those people, now I can ask you a question. What you heard today, this is for the audience. would you be willing to spend $24.95 to find a way to make your life better and live better with Parkinson's? Because if you are, just go, oh, you can't see that. Go to Amazon.com, put in Kristine's name, and it will take you right to the book, $24.95. And I promise you, at $24.95, it will change your life. And I'll go so far as saying, if you don't like it, Kristine will refund your money back.
You bet. I would. I would.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And, this is one of these episodes where what we really want to accomplish here is bring you information that just non-structured, non-scripted, just a conversation. I think we did extremely well today. And Kristine and Katrina, just want to say, it was a hell of an hour and a half.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I got to leave you with one last thing with Dr. Corcus, because he spells his name Corcos. So I'm Cosentino, Cos. So one day I told him, I said, we're the Alpha and Omega. We were meant to be together because my name starts with Cos. I'm the Alpha. Your name ends in Cos. You're the Omega. And like most people, he just shook his head. But
he's a great guy.
I couldn't think of a greater person for you to work with on this book.
Yes. It was fun. It was fun.
Well, I'm going to be the bad guy, and I'm going to say goodbye on behalf of everybody. And again, thank you all very much. It's been a great
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Christina. And I'm going to go to Amazon right now.
Oh, good.
$24.95.
All right.
Yep.
Write a review too.
Mention my name and get a discount.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.